around and tell them what to do, and they just get to act a fool. Free Beyonce.
We love y'all. We love y'all. We want y'all to get it right, at least get it close to right. And obviously it's subjective. Y'all don't got to clap it.
They built an empire on silence. But what happens when silence cracks? Right now, the whispers around Beyonce and Jay-Z are louder than ever. And this time, it's not just about music or fashion or even power. It's about betrayal, legacy, and a secret that could tear apart the house that Carter built. According to court chatter and bombshell filings, a judge may have ordered Jay-Z to take a DNA test because Ramier Satwait, a 31-year-old man with a haunting resemblance to the rap mogul, says he's the result of a brief and buried affair from the early 90s. If the results confirm what Ramier has been saying for over a decade, the scandal won't just end with a name on a paternity certificate. It could end the most protected marriage in showbiz, and we're hearing Queen Bey might already be packing her crown.
He wanted to find out who my father was, and for the case not to go how I was planning it, I really thought it was going to go different than.
Behind the scenes, it looks like Beyonce has been preparing for a clean break. Quietly, methodically, maybe even years in advance. Real estate trackers and aviation junkies have noticed something strange. Solo flights logged under her team's travel aliases, quiet escrow activity for luxury properties in Malibu and Paris, and multiple bodyguards reallocated away from Jay-Z's detail. One veteran of her security rotation claims she's been training for independence like it's an Olympic event. That's not just distant, that's detachment. And let's be honest, this isn't a woman who leaves things to chance. Not when there are billions, 3 children, and an image machine that could rival NASA's to protect.
It's not just about me. If I gotta fight for all of us, I will, but I won't let the court systems just walk over me. I won't let Jay-Z, I won't let no one just walk over me and tell me something because y'all just saying this. I want the truth. And if we can't go to the Supreme Courts, the regular courts, to find out the truth, what are they here for?
Yeah, all right, we'll get to the legal things that you've been through, the battles.
Let's talk symbols, because when it comes to Beyonce, symbols speak louder than statements. For years, fans obsessed over that ivy tattoo on her ring finger, matching Jay's commemorating birthdays, wedding dates, and destiny itself. But in recent months, the ivy is gone, laser faded, concealed in photos, and eventually not seen at all. Her left hand now flashes designer bling with no loyalty to the past. And for a woman who orchestrates even her Instagram captions, like their verse from Psalms, that eraser wasn't an accident. That was a quiet funeral, and while some fans brushed it off as a fashion choice, insiders are calling it what it looks like, a message.
Obviously it's subjective because, it's music and it's opinion-based, but, some.
According to one entertainment attorney with ties to Roc Nation, Beyonce's team initiated a legal firewall strategy back in 2021 that includes vetting offshore trust firms, securing independent residential leases for herself and the children, and allegedly onboarding a second legal team focused not on contracts, but on family law. That's right, divorce prep, not reactive, but proactive. And if it sounds strategic, that's because it is. These moves suggest Beyonce wasn't blindsided by the DNA drama. She may have been bracing for it.
So at what age then did you start to question, who your parents could be?
Well, I wouldn't say I started to question it, but I said around like 7, maybe 6. I think it started at 6, and my mom was just telling me that my father wasn't my father, but as a kid, I really didn't look.
Which brings us back to Rye. He's not just a name in the tabloids. He's a young man who has spent most of his adult life trying to force Jay-Z to acknowledge him. His mother, Wanda, filed affidavit. His guardians fought for legal standing. And yet, every door they knocked on seemed to vanish into sealed files and procedural loopholes. A man with no father up against a man with the best attorney's money can buy until now. Because somewhere in the chaos of recent filings, a thread unraveled, it appears a judge, not yet identified, has demanded a DNA test from Jay-Z, and Beyonce reportedly is done waiting to see how he handles it.
My mom was at a show, and she was with a friend, and I guess her friend stayed to, after the show, he was doing little signings and little autographs and stuff like that. I guess he wasn't too big, but I guess females, when the show is over, you can sign little autographs and stuff like that, talk to the people who perform. She said she went up there.
We're hearing the trust is broken, and not just from what Ramier represents, but from how the entire situation was hidden. Beyonce is said to have known about the allegations years ago, but only recently learned about the extent of legal efforts used to suppress them. There are whispers we've heard from 2 former Roc Nation executives and a paralegal involved in the New Jersey case that Jay-Z's legal team may have offered favors or deals to a court figure connected to Roc Nation, allegedly to get Ramier's case dismissed on a technicality. That story hasn't broken publicly yet, but it's spreading through music law circles like wildfire.
All appears calm and normal until Solange Knowles, Beyonce's sister, lunges at her brother.
And if even half of it proves true, the implications are massive. This wouldn't just be a personal betrayal. It would be a conspiracy to silence a child for the protection of a brand. And Beyonce, who's built a reputation on female empowerment, generational healing, and maternal strength, would suddenly find herself cast in the role of silent accomplice. Not a good look. Not for the woman who sold us lemonade. The silence starts to look less like strength and more like strategy. But there's only so long you can play the quiet game before the world demands a statement.
Anything, so why wouldn't I believe my mom? Like, you know, we could have been settled this, and it only takes a conversation and some words, you know. I'm not a hateful guy. I don't hate anyone. I'm not after nobody. I'm not trying to see no one downfall, but this is just some, you know, some things that just went through court, and they just expected me to just sit there and just take what they were saying.
Meanwhile, the couple's public appearances have dipped into uncanny territory. Separate arrivals at galas posed smiles without touch. A family dinner in LA where they sat on opposite ends of the table, surrounded by PR handlers, but barely exchanging words. And when Beyonce took Blue Ivy to the grand opening of the Jay-Z exhibition in Brooklyn, she arrived in a separate car, gave a rehearsed smile, and left before the after-party even began. One of the staffers at the library event said it best. She looked like a woman doing a job, not a wife honoring a husband. It's the kind of fracture you don't notice until you realize the pictures don't move anymore. And now fans are going back through old interviews, old lyrics, old performances, searching for the signs. Some are pointing to that moment in Beyonce's Renaissance film premiere where Jay-Z leaned in for a kiss and she turned her head just slightly enough to land it on her cheek. Others have zeroed in on her tour wardrobe. Golds and silvers replacing blues and blacks, diamonds over wedding rings, and not a single mention of Jay-Z in her speeches. Not even when she swept awards season like a thunderstorm, she thanked her family. She thanked the fans, but the husband, not a word. Exactly 10 years ago. They say this was a party for...
10 years ago, they say this was a party for Diddy's son, King Combs, but all the names involved here are huge. Huge. Talking Beyonce, Jay-Z, LeBron James. Now, all of those people are just witnesses, according to this lawsuit.
According to this lawsuit, all of this casts a long shadow over Jay-Z's own crisis. Because while he's battling new lawsuits related to the alleged paternity and past misconduct claims that range from deflection to fraud to even darker territory, Beyonce seems to be staging a quiet escape. Her team has clamped down on media inquiries, issued soft retractions about any divorce chatter, and even reposted a few old family photos to stabilize the narrative. But behind the curtain, the play looks very different. We've seen this move before. Controlled optics, public distance, and a slow rebranding of identity. Beyonce Knowles, not Mrs. Carter. And for anyone wondering whether this is just a blip, one source close to her Houston circle says she's already met twice with a prominent family law attorney known for handling high-wet, low-profile dissolutions. That's not rumors, that's calendar entries. And if the court-ordered DNA test confirms what Rye has been claiming since 2010, Beyonce's exit might not just be personal, it might be political. Because in a time when she's aligned herself with justice reform and female resilience, staying silent next to a partner with these kinds of allegations hanging over him might no longer be an option.
Took them to some apartment building, and you know, they did what they did in there, you know, talked a little bit, had a good time, party, and I guess had, you know, I can't fully talk as my mom because I'm not my mom. I'm just telling you guys what she told me. And I honestly just believe her. You know, it's just no.
But let's not forget, this isn't just about a paternity test. This is about a legacy. Jay-Z and Beyonce didn't just build a marriage. They built a myth. The Bonnie and Clyde of music, the power couple of all power couples. And yet, if these rumors are true, if there's bribery, betrayal, and a child whose only crime was being born, then everything they built could be at risk. The image, the brand, the empire, and the fuse may have already been lit. Because the whispers about a judge being influenced didn't come from tabloids. They came from people who were in the room. We don't know yet whether that story will go public. But if it does, it could change everything. And while the silence from Beyonce's camp grows heavier, what's emerging underneath that polished stillness is something far more dangerous than marital heartbreak. If this split happens, and by all signs it already is behind the curtain, the fallout won't be a matter of who gets the bare mansion or custody over Instagram aesthetics. It will be about what gets unearthed. Because what started as a paternity dispute with one persistent man could now expose a decade of sealed filings, unanswered subpoenas, and names that appear too often in too many places, places that now sit at the center of multiple federal investigations.
So there would presumably be people who could verify it or say it didn't happen.
Yeah, and that's one of the problems. You're right. When you mention all those people, they may all have alibis.
Well, Jay-Z certainly seems to have one.
Yeah.
So Jay-Z has mentioned that he's there with Beyonce, but we know that Jay-Z was in New York.
Yes.
The night that it was supposed to. Now,
the night of King Combs of his birthday, which happens to be
April 1st. We traced Jay-Z's Gafreme flight records through a civil aviation database used by industry trackers. And what we found raises even more questions. One former Roc Nation associate confirms his private jet was log landing in Miami just days before one of Diddy Combs' so-called freak-off weekends allegedly occurred. Another sighting places Jay-Z's aircraft on the tarmac at Teterboro, the same New Jersey airport used to shuttle high-profile guests to Diddy's upstate estate, the same property now under scrutiny for its alleged connection to coerced misconduct. Why was Jay-Z's jet there during those weekends in those places? Coincidence or proximity by design? Dean Use.
Mr. Diddy, aka Mr. Love Nap.
No, Sean Carter.
Former Rock staffer who spoke under anonymity for fear of retaliation said flatly, Jay knew what went on at Diddy's parties. Everyone who was invited did. You didn't show up to those weekends by accident. And you didn't bring your own team. You used theirs for a reason. If that's true, it's not just guilt by association, it's logistics. A paper trail, one that Beyonce reportedly has known about for months, possibly years. And if so, her silence becomes not just self-pee protection, but strategic insulation from a wider net of accountability. It's not the first time Beyonce has used silence as her scalpel. Over the years, she's developed a language beyond words, a symbolic code etched into visual cues, bodily choices, and deliberate absences. When she removed her 4 tattoo, it wasn't just about ending a chapter with Jay-Z. It was a quiet ritualistic severance. That Roman numeral wasn't inked casually. It marked their birthdays, their wedding date, their entire mythology. Scrubbing it away wasn't a whim. It was grief in reverse. A private funeral for a marriage the world still assumed was intact.
I got older and my mom just continued to say the same thing and she never changed the name. Like, you know, she always was staying with the same name. I'm like, well, why? Like, as I got to 16, 17, I'm like, Mom, you've been saying this since I was a kid. So it's like, now my mom never lied to me, so why not?
And it didn't start there. Long before this latest unraveling, Beyonce had already begun broadcasting her inner fractures through carefully staged transformations. The infamous Pixie cut in 2013, dismissed at the time as a bold style switch, now reads like the prelude to emotional upheaval. According to stylists close to her team, it was planned like a statement down to the exact timing post-tour. It wasn't about aesthetics. It was about shedding skin, haircuts, ring removals, cold poses on warm carpets. These weren't just fashion moves. They were control. When your voice is watched, dissected, twisted. You let your body speak. Would be. Something I really would want to find out because, in the future, and what it's been saying lately is chilling. The shift in her visual identity during the Renaissance era, glittering but impersonal, veiled yet bold, mirrors a woman stepping into her power alone, no longer intertwined, no longer performing partnership. This is Beyonce uncoupled, not just from a man, but from a myth. Every public appearance since is layered on the same message. She's mourned in private. She's burned the old vows, and now she's preparing for rebirth. Not soft, not apologetic, but strategic, surgical, and already halfway out the door. And then there's Ramier, the man at the center of the scandal, who says all he ever wanted was truth. According to court documents and statements given to media outlets, he's not just been blocked from pursuing his claim, he's been targeted. Sources familiar with the case say that in the months leading up to the most recent lawsuit filing, Ramier received multiple anonymous phone calls warning him to stop. We're told that at least 2 of those calls were traced to digital numbers linked to an internal roster at a prominent Los Angeles PR firm, the same firm used by Beyonce's team for crisis management and public positioning.
So we just fought it. Like, it was never to chase anyone or make anyone feel like, we just trying to come up with a plan to take your money. I don't want your money. That's not what I'm here for. I'm really here to just find the truth out. And it seemed like that was just so hard to do in these courts. Like, these courts are not.
Let's ask the question plainly. Why would Beyonce's people have any reason to monitor, let alone contact the alleged son of a man she's never claimed as family? Why would her crisis team be circling a paternity case filed by a stranger? Unless that stranger was closer to her orbit than the public was ever supposed to know. If Beyonce truly had no part in suppressing the truth, why does her name even appear in the metadata of legal communications tied to this case? A former paralegal who worked briefly with a law firm adjacent to the proceedings claimed she was told, quote, "Don't mention the singer. We're not supposed to name her in emails. That's not distance, that's orchestration." And it gets even darker. Legal watchdogs combing through the filings have pointed out procedural irregularities, missing timestamps, hearings never scheduled, entire affidavits sealed without explanation. Multiple court clerks in New Jersey were reassigned during the time Ramier's filings were allegedly misfiled or delayed. One judge, whose name appears both in Ramier's filings and in unrelated business contracts with Roc Nation, quietly retired midterm. No press conference, no statement, just gone. If we're looking at a cover-up, we're not talking about a favor. We're talking about institutional protection for one of the most powerful families in American pop culture. A machine designed not just to defend Jay-Z, but to protect Beyonce from ever having to answer for what she may have known.
Felonies, I'm not crazy or none of that. It's like, I just want the truth, and it's so hard to get it from the courts. And it seems like Jay-Z don't want to say anything. So, I don't want to see him go down for something that, you could have just got taken care of. That's it.
Because now the questions go beyond, is Jay-Z a father? They go to the legal implications of that birth. Wandel Satterwhite, Ramier's mother, was reportedly just 16 when she became pregnant. Jay-Z was in his early 20s. If that relationship took place as alleged, and in a state where the age of consent was 17, the fallout could stretch beyond paternity and into criminal liability. And here's the part no one's talking about yet. If Beyonce knew about this relationship years ago, if she knew a statutory violation was at the heart of her husband's biggest secret and stayed silent, what does that say about the values behind her brand? We've long been sold an image of Beyonce as a feminist icon, a cultural guardian, a symbol of female strength and generational healing. But now we're being asked to square that image with the possibility that she helped shield a man from accountability, all to protect the empire they built together. Is her sudden separation a righteous escape or a carefully timed pivot before the bomb drops? Because let's not forget, court orders can unseal at any moment. Depositions can leak, and if Rye gets the DNA confirmation he's been demanding for over a decade, everything changes.
Act that anybody can find.
Sure.
But what happened once he got into this party at Diddy's house is outrageous. And I know we're supposed to take every lawsuit seriously because we don't know, we weren't there. The Gloria Estefan part, that's just the start. How Beyonce gets...
It won't stop with headlines. It will trigger new lawsuits. It could trigger an appeal to reopen cases dismissed on technical grounds. And if those sealed records come loose, records that may contain financial transfers, internal memos, maybe even email exchanges between legal teams and crisis managers, then what we're looking at isn't just a broken marriage. It's the slow public implosion of a dynasty that survived everything except the truth. So now we turn to you. What if the DNA test proves Jay-Z is the father? What if that truth uncovers not just betrayal, but a crime? And what if Beyonce, the queen of control, knew all along and helped bury it beneath press tours, perfume launches, and perfectly staged Grammy speeches? Is she escaping a scandal, or is she hiding one of her own? Let us know what you believe in the comments below, because this storm's just getting started. And if the Carter fall, it won't be from outside, it'll be from within. Stay curious, stay bold, and until next time, watch the throne,